Hello, like you, I've always been a fan of Janet and John. They're such a loving couple. A couple who've, over the years, taken their marriage vows very seriously. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. Till death us do part, and one day it'll be John's parting that'll happen. But they are a loving couple. But have you noticed, and this really has concerned me, that we've never heard about their family. We've never heard about their children. Now, being such a loving couple, they must have had children, and I'm sure they'd be children brought up properly, and of course, knowing their background, would have been taken to church to be baptized. Now, that may sound very straightforward to you, but I can tell you, as someone who's done baptisms for years and years and years, it's not always as straightforward as that. Take one Sunday, it was a Whit Sunday, the Feast of Pentecost, and I was in my first parish in Portsmouth. There were 19 babes to baptize. It was always difficult when the Ark Royle was in. You knew that there'd be a colossal number. And I'd got a font, I'd got a jug of water, I'd taken a couple of aspirins, I'd got a drip-dry surplice in case water went everywhere, and I thought I could cope with this lot. Actually, what I did want to do was get out a hose and go, but you know how people like the personal touch. And so all was going very well indeed until I got to babe number 14. And babe number 14, instead of being a lovely bundle of joy nestling sweetly into its mother's arms, was in fact a bouncing 4-year-old. Now, I wasn't going to hold a 4-year-old for any length of time because I've had a bit of back trouble. I mean, nothing to worry about because it's purely psychosomatic. So I'd put a chair by the side of the font, and the godmother, who was also the grandmother, brought the child up. And I said, "Name this child." And she said, "Norman." And I thought, that's a pity. So I turned to Norman and I said, "Come on, Norman, jump up on this chair." And he said, "Shan't." And I thought, oh, hallelujah, here we go. So I got hold of Norman, I stood him on the chair. I said, "Now, come on, Norman, get your head over that font and it'll be perfectly all right," keeping a smile the whole time. Because if you lose the smile, they say, "What a nasty vicar. No wonder no one goes to church." And I'm terribly good with children. Anyway, Norman was far more quick-witted than I was, and his hands went up round his head, so it was impossible to get water near or by him without drowning him. Just at this moment, the mother appeared at the font as reinforcements, and you could see what was going through her mind. There were the sandwiches under a damp cloth. There was a kettle on a low gas. The cake had been made. I mean, she was going to have Norman done if it killed her. But still, Norman held out. So in my best TV compere's voice, I said, "Can you come back next week?" Norman was removed from the side of the font. Peace was restored, and the service of Holy Baptism went on. But I mean, no one had warned me about something like that, and I could imagine Janet and John bringing their offspring to the font, having the same sort of problems. The other thing that we never really hear about, although we get a lot about the shopping and the gardening and the shed, we never really hear about meal times. Now, I should think Janet is a wonderful cook. Straightforward, nothing too fancy. But I wonder whether, in fact, in the household of Janet and John, grace is said before meals. It would be lovely if they said things like, "Thanks for the chickens. Thanks for the eggs. But why are there so many chicken legs? For custard creams and apple crumble, just bless the Lord and do not grumble." And then, of course, there may be the thoughts at breakfast time. "Lord, as we begin this new day, help us not to be like porridge, stiff and stodgy and slow to stir, but like cornflakes, crisp and light and ready to serve." Or, in fact, there may be more than one meal, because I think there would be a consistent, good quality eating within the Janet and John household. So there would be breakfast, lunch and dinner. And so at the end of those meals, I could imagine John, in his forthright but fairly timid way, saying, "Thanks for breakfast, lunch and dinner. If it weren't for you, I'd be much thinner. Amen."